Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, class. I think this is supposed to be a one-on-one. And the speaking of historical and current developments in the philosophy of education. First of all, we are going to kind of have like three different epochs here. The first one being ancient foundations, medieval foundations, and then the modern or the current trends. Starting with the ancient foundations, as you all know, this is more or less like, if I want to call it, I'll give it one of the title of the courses I teach at master's level. We call it History of Educational Ideas. That is more or less like what is happening here. A history of educational ideas, but looking at it from the perspective of philosophy of education and what people are actually teaching. So if you look at the historical period of the ancient time, yes, philosophy didn't actually start with Socrates. But however, you find out that even history of philosophy itself is kind of, let me say, divided into what we call pre-Socratic era, Socratic era, and post-Socratic era. All revolving around the name of who? Socrates, this name. Socrates. So what we are now looking at here is just the Socratic era. I'm not going deep into the pre-Socratic because there was nothing much about education there during that time. So during the time of Socrates, we found out that as far as education is concerned, he gave us a lot of things. The first fight he did in education was that education should be free. Education is not for sale. Because when he came, he met a couple of people teaching in the Greek society that called the sophists. These sophists were philosophers in their own right too. Because during that time, anything you are doing as far as education is concerned, they call it philosophy. Whatever you are doing at that time, they call it philosophy. So they were philosophers, but what they were doing was that they are teaching only the people of the what we call the aristocratic class. Only when you belong to the ruling class, the people that can pay, then you have education. But if you are poor, they don't even care about who you are. They don't care about your need for education. So when Socrates came to the society that time, when he came back from what we call the Peloponnesian War, he realized that something was just off key. What about the children of the poor? How can they learn? Is education only for the children of the rich? So he really seriously fought against this idea. And he began to teach his own for free. Are we getting it? So this is the first history of education development you can think about as far as that was concerned. And he developed a method, what we now call the Socratic method of teaching. That is very important. That's Socratic method. You find out that using the Socratic method, they don't actually give you too much information. Rather, they sieve the information from you, because as far as this class was concerned at that time, during the Socratic era, they believed that when you are born with your own knowledge. Meaning that knowledge is a recollection of ideas, not learning something new through experience, like they would say it in one of the schools of thought. But for them, knowledge is a recollection. And as such, if it is a recollection, meaning it means that if you just want to make someone to remember, you just ask the question. As soon as you ask the question, the person begins to attempt maybe not accurate answers, but at least not out of the box. So as soon as you begin to make that person to recall what he or she has forgotten, the learning content comes back intact. However, in most of the cases, that's what we call the question and answer method. When someone comes to the classroom, he asks questions, the student answer, he kind of, let me say, refine their own responses. By refining of the responses, they are now beginning to get that idea better than they used to think of it before. Are we getting it? So this is simply what we call the Socratic method, and it was actually demonstrated in one of the dialogues of Plato, called the Meno dialogue. This Meno was a child that was interviewed by, well, let me say interrogated, or however, just questioned by Socrates about some mathematical issues. And when Socrates was trying to prove that we are born with our knowledge, people didn't actually agree with him. So he called a random boy like that, called Meno, and he was asking him some questions, and everyone was saying what he was trying to explain. So inside this dialogue, you see how it unfolded. If you look at it from the works of Plato, note that this Socrates during his time did not write anything. He was a very good teacher. He was not into writing stuffs. And one of the reasons why was that he just believed that whatever he's dishing out to people, they'll just get it. After all, they have their knowledge inside them, so there's no need to write anything. Are we getting it? So this is what Socrates did. So when Socrates left his own time, he didn't actually live. There is a reason why we say that. He was actually executed. Socrates was executed in Greece, and after his execution, Plato continued from where he stopped. Although Plato did not start immediately, because he was fearing that his life was also at stake. Knowing that he was the closest of the disciples of Socrates, so he feared for his life. He fled Greece immediately. He fled Athens immediately after the execution of Socrates. He went to Italy and so many other surrounding states. He stayed there for like 10 years, wandering about, but still writing. It was later he came back after those 10 years of the execution of Socrates that he began to create what we call the very first formal institution in the world, called the academy. Who? You must have heard of the academy. I think maybe we did that in 105. Did we? I didn't. Well, he created the first academy there called the first institution, a university, if you like, or a secondary school. It was more or less like a university. And that was where he was grooming a lot of others. The most noticeable of them being Aristotle. Aristotle was the student of Plato after the demise of Socrates. So, Plato, what did Plato do in his own part? We're looking at his chronology here. What did Plato do after the going of Socrates? So when Plato came, when he came back, the first thing he did was to establish the academy. Because he had enough written and he was ready to implement his ideas. Most especially one of his famous books that we can't forget to mention here, that is The Republic. The Republic this Republic, he put a lot of ideas there on how education should be and how our own curriculum itself should be. How the society, he described what he called, inside that republic, he described what he called an ideal republic. An ideal republic, according to Plato then, was that that society must be classed into 3 different individuals. Wherever you have any society or any class of group of people, they must be classified into these 3. He said we have what we call the philosopher kings, the appetitive elements, as well as the spirited elements. And the appetitive elements. These philosopher kings, according to Plato, then was that they are the, let's say, top 5% in any society. The top intelligent 5%. Most intelligent, sometimes they are the geniuses in any society. You find them in any classroom. Go. That is a normal, what we call the normal. In other words, this kind of classification came to be what we now later, by the psychologists, call the normal population curve. The normal population curve in psychology to mean that this is the top 5% and this is the downmost 5%, while the rest belong to this middle class, or what we call the average learners. Are we getting it? So this first category of individuals, according to Plato, or called the philosopher kings, these philosopher kings are the most intelligent in the society. And the reason why he made this classification was that their own education should not be the same with other students. There are in other words called the gifted children. Being gifted in that, if someone is gifted, you find out that the way he learns is different from the way others learn. So you can't expect to put him in the same place with everyone else if you really want to get the best out of him. Else he would even think of your learning environment as just too ridiculous. Because as soon as you say anything, he has already mastered it. And if you're not careful, those kind of students could be wayward in the classroom. They could disturb your peace because you're not giving them enough to chew. So that is why they said their own education should be unique and should be different. They should have a different curriculum that others have. And secondly, he had what he called the spirited elements. These spirited elements, according to Plato, then were what he referred to as the law enforcement agencies, or the law enforcement class. Meaning that these people, they are high in spirit and in physique. When you look at them, you just see authority. You don't want to mess around. And they should be used for the protection and maintenance of law and order of that particular society. Whenever there is any issue of law and order, there should be those to take care of that. By virtue of their physique, by virtue of their own spirit. Because when they use the reason why they use the word spirit is because they are so brave. You know, that courage is not everyone. Someone could be big, but you see that he's too feeble. Oh, you have seen in a lot of cases, someone is so big, so fat. But once you just come close, you find out that it's just a little child there. He doesn't have the high spirit of someone that can command respect and power. Oh? So that is why he said that they are spirited in that, because they have that kind of charisma and they can command respect and they can command law and order. So that is why he said those people should also be identified. When they are identified, then they should be put in the right place. Are we getting it? This is it. And the last thing, how we call the appetitive element. The appetitive, he said they are neither spirited nor are they gifted. Or nor are they the philosopher kings. They are just the average learners, they are the average people in the society. And as such, these people should be used for the production and distribution of goods and services. They should, in other words, handle the economic base of the society. They should handle the economic affairs of that particular society. So, as simple as it is. And as such, their knowledge should also be tailored towards that direction. For instance, maybe you can think about entrepreneurship education for them. Go? Commerce, all these arts, accounting. Then think about anything that has to do with economics. They should be geared towards that particular direction. And also the energy should be utilized judiciously. And in most cases, they are the majority of the population. That is why we said they are the average learners as far as psychology is concerned. So that is why I found out that in the normal population, they are the majority. The average learners and the average people, they are the majority in any society. Those few are unique. Are we getting the classification now? Then now, coming to Aristotle. Aristotle, after after first of all graduating from the Academy of Plato, Aristotle stayed with Plato, taught with Plato for over 20 years in that same academy, graduating different sets of individuals. I think he has stayed enough, go? And after that, he now decamped and opened a school of his own called the Lyceum. Inside that Lyceum, Aristotle was having somewhat a different curriculum from the one that his master was having. Do you understand? A different curriculum in that what he was bringing to the table was thinking about science. He was shifting his own attention from the world, what we refer to as the world of forms or world of ideas, into the world of objects. That was why, if you are talking about these schools of thought, you find out that at a point in time, he said that matter also matters. We need to put our attention into matter. This matter, this is the beginning of science. The discovery of matter. Go? Although he didn't actually start it, but he said much more than anyone else could. And he wrote much more than anyone else could as well. He was prolific as a writer as his own master was. That is talking about Plato, of course. So when Aristotle came, he was also so prolific, and he was writing a lot of things about scientific issues, about issues of biology, and issues on any other thing that you can think about, politics, ethics, and a host of others. So the attention was shifted from world of ideas into the world of objects. That is what he actually came to bring for us. That is, I'm speaking of Aristotle, I'm shifting as you can understand. The chronology is moving. Oh? Now Aristotle. So, apart from these issues, he also made mention of a lot of things about ethics. He published like 2 different books on ethics. The first one called the Nicomachean Ethics, and the other one, the Eudemian Ethics. Nicomachean Ethics but that is eudaimonia, but so that is this one will not take eudemia. So inside these 2 books, Aristotle was talking about a lot of things to do with how we live in our own societies. Politics of Aristotle, you find it here. All things that have to do with society and how individuals should align themselves with what he called the virtues. I was more into what the ethics of virtue. That is the character of what is expected of an individual to be a responsible person in his own society. Do you understand? So he was looking at something called practical reasoning. What is now called phronesis. That is in the Greek language, of course. This practical reasoning is talking about how we as individuals sit and live with one another in a harmonious environment. Saying how we can respect what we call the moral code. Respect the moral code in that as we relate with one another, we have respect for each other at the same time. Do you understand? So he said so much about this, and we're not going to waste much time because there is so much to discuss in just one period. Because I'm not going to stay for more than 2 periods for this class. Just one is enough for us. We're now looking at the medieval period. Medieval. Inside this medieval period, that's a Christian theology and Islamic philosophy. At this point, we have the Christian theology, that is the first part, talking about the Crusaders. But before then, at this medieval period, you can think about, that is talking about the Middle Ages now. Cool? When we say medieval, of course. Because those ones, the ancient period, we're talking about, during the times of Socrates, we're talking about 300 years before Christ era. Cool? While here, we're talking about the Middle Age, that is 1,000 years to, let's say, 17,000. 17. That is AD. That is after the death of Jesus Christ. Cool? So, if you look at this medieval period now, the most important figures that we discussed here were 2 people, St. Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas. St. Augustine had a way of discussing theology and philosophy, trying to marry the two, how we can maybe prove the existence of God using a lot of other, let's say he was more or less like Platonic in his own ideas. St. Augustine was Platonic in his ideas. He was looking to prove the existence of God using that theory of forms of Plato. While Aquinas, on the other hand, was more of Aristotle. That was why they say he was a peripatetic philosopher. Are we getting it? He was more into the works of Aristotle. So he was using kind of what we call this realism, material realism, to explain the existence of God. And at the same time, these people tried as much as they could to maintain that balance of philosophy between philosophy and theology. However, they still want to silence philosophy because they believe that philosophy was more or less like asking too many questions. So there was this kind of, or what they call a war of attrition between religion and philosophy at that time, or and reason. That was why after a point in time, when this medieval period, there was this tension between philosophy and religion, up to a point when we reached what we call the age of Renaissance. That is talking about the 16th century, Renaissance period. Renaissance period, also called Age of Enlightenment, because at that time they were not actually allowing anyone to just speak anyhow as far as God is concerned. Even these 2 philosophers themselves, that is speaking of Augustine and Aquinas, they themselves did not actually escape condemnation from people of the church. because they believed that they were trying to kind of cross a line that they shouldn't have crossed. That you shouldn't be asking too many questions as far as God is concerned. So the church was not actually, let me say, allowing or giving space for people to act philosophically, that is to ask too many questions. That was when we had the issue of the Crusaders. They were some set of people who understood the religion but very shallow, and thinking that anyone thinking otherwise should just be silenced. They will go to a place and burn places or schools of philosophy, maybe see a philosopher's work, and just burn the whole works. That people are just trying to blaspheme here. As far as you are not worshiping God, then you are a pagan, and if you are a pagan, then you are in trouble. That was the Crusade period. But the age of Renaissance here, they said it was kind of the age of reason. An age whereby they were trying to see how they could silence religion and just let reason dictate the order of the day. So after this, we had Islamic philosophers who were also on their own. Most especially, we can think about, if I do discussing this, let me just say, let us discuss like 2 or 3 of them. Let's say 3. Al-Kindi, Al-Farabi, Al-Kindi, they said, was more or less like the Plato of the Greeks, because he was the first Islamic philosopher to have used Islamic philosophy alongside the Greek philosophy. And his philosophy was more or less like Platonic. He was more into the works of Plato than he was with the works of Aristotle. Secondly, we have Al-Farabi, who was referred to as the second teacher. Al-Farabi being called the second teacher, he came with a view of philosophy different from the way Al-Kindi did. Because his own was more or less like looking at the philosophy of Aristotle. And he was even given out to that name, the second teacher, thinking of Aristotle to be the first teacher. He tried to unify a lot of issues in Islam and the society in general. That was why sometimes he was given the title the unifier. A unifier in that he was looking to see how there could be a harmony between different sects in the religion. He was more or less like saying that we should emphasize our own similarities than emphasizing our own differences. The first attempt he did for this unification was to unify the ideas of Plato and those of Aristotle to be one and the same thing, so that we can have just one philosophy. Secondly, he was a unifier, that he was thinking that even Islam and Christianity should also be one thing. After all, yes, I can still agree with him too, because they all believe in one God. They all come from the same source. So there shouldn't be such kind of divide, according to Al-Farabi here. So many other issues. He was more or less trying to see how he can just reconcile things. That was why he was called the unifier. He did a lot of work in trying to explain how Aristotle tried to teach a lot of things. So we have lastly what we call the Imam Ghazali. Ghazali, being one of the most rugged and most prolific, they said he was more or less like, at his own time, he was given this name called the Mujaddid. The revival of the revivalist. Because when he came, he didn't only go into theology, he also went deep into philosophy. Not to just, let's say, align with philosophy, but to destroy philosophy. Because he was called the executioner of Western philosophy at a point in time. During the time of Al-Ghazali, he wrote like 2 or 3 books. The most important of those books, one called the Ihya Ulumuddin, that is called the Revival of the Religious Sciences. After which, he wrote another one called the Maqasid al-Falasifa. That is the aim of the philosophers. After the aim of the philosophers, or the Maqasid al-Falasifa, he wrote another one called the Tahaffut al-Falasifa. That is the incoherence of the philosophers. And it was after this incoherence of the philosophers that so many people were bringing out philosophy books and burning them down in the East that time. That was why he was given this title that the executioner of Western philosophy. Because philosophy naturally died in that area. Nobody cared to read philosophy. Are we getting it? So he did a lot of things. He talked about knowledge, most especially because we're looking at the philosophy of education here. He talked about knowledge so deep on how we should teach our own kids. How he looks at education in general, or knowledge in general, as what we call amana. That is trust. And whenever you are given knowledge, then it is more or less like a trust given to you. And if you are given a trust, then you must take it to the owner. And that owner is the masses. Don't just keep it to yourself. You should also disseminate. So more or less, like if you look at it, it's now following the footsteps of Socrates here too. Go, even though this is all about the Islamic teachings in general. Islam preaches that knowledge is not for you alone. It should be what passed down. That is why there are a lot of traditions of the Prophet saying that khairukum man allama al-Quran thumma allama. Another one saying that ballighu anni walau ayah, that say about me, even if it's just a verse. Disperse the message. So that is how he looked at it. So now coming down to the modern era. This period is kind of, let me say, I've already mentioned the Renaissance scope. I didn't say much about the Renaissance. This Renaissance, we can think about like 3 different names there. That is the Age of Reason. The Age of Reason. Speaking of John Amos Comenius, speaking of Immanuel Kant, J.W.F. Hegel, all these people contributed so immensely into education and into what we call Age of Reason. How reason should dictate the order of the day. Most especially that this person, Immanuel Kant. Please, our Immanuel Kant in philosophy is like this. These 3 important names cannot escape the age of our Renaissance. Immanuel Kant, they said he dictated even the motto of that particular age. The motto he dictated then was that, what he's saying is that, dare to know. Dare to know. Dare to seek for knowledge. Dare to go and read. Don't just simply stay there and just listen to what the church is telling you. Go and read on your own. Don't listen to only what the pastor says. Pick up the Bible and read it by yourself. That was more or less like what they were talking about that time. So after him, there was John Amos Comenius, another name called Bishop of the Moravian Church. This John Amos Comenius was saying that he gave like 2 important books that time. One called the Great Didactic and another one called the Orbis Pictus. That is the world as I see it. The Great Didactic was more or less like telling us how we should teach. Not just how we should teach in the classroom, but also how we should even arrange the curriculum, how we should design the curriculum in our own schools. Up to the time of how we should put our own timetables as far back as this age. And in fact, this was what earned him the title, the father of modern education. That is John Amos Comenius, the father of modern education. Because most of what we have seen practical in our own schools here were from the works of this individual. Inside the Great Didactic, he also gave us like what we call the 9 principles. Those 9 principles that he gave us were like more or less like let me say a blueprint of how best we should teach. Up to the time of even thinking about the environment, the atmosphere, the sitting arrangement of our students. We did not leave anything untouched there. So that was why he was given that title. And secondly, the other book, that is what he said, it was the first pictorial book, the Orbis Pictus. I'm talking about what you call the Great Didactic. And Orbis Pictus. The Orbis Pictus was the first pictorial book in that he was talking about, he was now focusing his attention to children now. That the way we should teach our children we should use many pictures. We should teach them using pictures, not just giving them some abstract ideas. Because children concretize more when they see pictures. That is why now when you go to the nursery schools or the kindergarten, you see that majority of what they are teaching the children there are picture books. Have you noticed that? Haven't you noticed that? The books in the nursery. Are they talking about too many definitions there? Just simple pictures. And that was how it started from the work of this John Amos Comenius. And then lastly, among the people there, we can think about John Locke. John Locke, being a British philosopher, he was so rugged. He did a whole lot. Most especially on something he wrote, something called some thoughts concerning education. Thoughts concerning education. These thoughts concerning education, he said a whole lot on how we should teach, the kind of way we should train our students. The method was clear there. And he was also aligning himself with the philosophy of realism. In fact, he even brought an idea called the tabula rasa then. You must have heard the famous tabula rasa. This tabula rasa was actually given that when a child is born, he comes empty-minded. Meaning that it's only through the experience that he or she gets through the society or through the environment that gives that child experience. But he doesn't have anything. That was also called the tabula rasa. That is about that. Then now the modern era is what we are trying to discuss now. Sorry, there is one missing name here. And then it's missing. I'm talking about Rousseau. J.J. Rousseau. I didn't mention J.J. Rousseau in this Renaissance period because, in fact, J.J. Rousseau will come before all of this because they say he's the most influential of all philosophers as far as education is concerned. He wrote a book titled The Emile. He said that Emile Rousseau was so rugged, not just rugged, but revolutionary. Revolutionary in that he was thinking that the whole system of education is going wrong. And if you want to get it right, then do exactly the opposite of what is happening in our own society. That is the one you get it right. We'll expand this when you come to another level. But this is just what you need to know about him. And he wrote a book titled Emile. This Emile was a character he wrote on how we should educate this particular character or child. So that was what we need to concentrate on when we're talking about that. Now, the modern era. The modern era. We have J.W.F. Hegel. We have John Dewey. And we are going to look at Maria Montessori. Maria Montessori. According to Hegel, he was looking at education for autonomy and education for historical consciousness. Because I was saying that, he said, consciousness is the basis of reality. Meaning that we as individuals, we should look at education as nothing but something that is going to give us autonomy. What is going to make us to be autonomous individuals? To be what? In other words, self-reliant individuals. When at the end of the day, if you go through a system of education and you are still looking for ways for people to support you, then you didn't go for any education. Your education should give you power to stand on your feet. Well, education should give you power to stand on your feet. So that was what he was actually talking about. And he was also talking about historical consciousness. We as people should understand where we are from. Our education should also tell us who we are and where we are going. Meaning that history is very important for any individual to realize himself. To discover who you are, you need to know who you really are from the historical perspective. That is why sometimes it's good to visit the old people. Maybe you are doing something, just go and visit those old grandmas there. They'll give you history about your father. And you pick some things about yourself. You see yourself doing it, you don't even know that you are doing it. But you just look like your father when he was so young. You'll be hearing them giving you stories. And then you really begin to understand who you really are and how you should control yourself. So this is exactly what he was talking about. And then we have John Dewey. John Dewey here is more or less like telling us education for experience. Education for experience in that whenever we go to school, what we need to do is to what? To learn from our own experience. Because he sees education as a matter of experience in that whatever we are learning here is a question of experience. That was why when he was asked what education is, he said is the organization and the construction of experience which adds meaning to experience and that is the subsequent cause of experience. Are we clear? Well, that is what he told us about this John Dewey. This John Dewey also wrote a book titled Democracy and Education. Inside this democracy and education, John Dewey said we need to educate our children for a democratic living. Democratic living in that whatever we are doing should be what? Democratic. What does it mean to be democratic? To be participatory. Participatory in that no one should hold the power for decisions alone. There should be what decisions should be made by the majority. Decisions should be made by the whole class. Not just maybe the teacher dictating, and everyone follow it, for instance. Or, for instance, looking at issues that have to do with how we rule our own societies. By giving the president too much power now. The fact that we are using what we call the presidential system of government. There's so much power vested on the president, such that he doesn't actually sometimes care about what you think. As an individual, he can just make a decision, and no one can stop that decision from happening. So such kind of environment shouldn't actually be called democratic. It should be called something else, but not democratic. So this is what he's trying to talk about, democracy and education. So education should teach democracy. When someone is learning, she should learn towards what? The collective responsibility and collective decision making. I'm not going to spend much there on him. And then what we call the pragmatic education. Pragmatic education is simply talking about that learning by experience. Education should be pragmatic, should be practical rather. Go. When we are teaching our children, they should do it in practical form. I was in one of the classrooms last week with my students, and I was teaching ICT. And there was no light. I was like, how am I going to teach this class now? I had to only use what I have here, that is my laptop, to be the instrument. So that is why if you look at this pragmatic teaching, it's more or less like talking about practical classrooms. Lastly, we have Montessori. Montessori is also of the view that we should use what she class as child-centered learning. Learning should be child-centered or student-centered, if you like. Child-centered in that, don't just come as a teacher and dominate the whole learning experience of the child. Put enough experiential, let me say, materials for the child. Give enough room for them to explore on their own naturally. She's not more or less like saying that the child should be led to explore everything on his or her own, but they should be given much freedom to be trying things on their own. We shouldn't be handing over everything to them and just let them just do it on their own. For instance, now if you can think about what she was talking about when you are raising a child, the Montessori method. Sometimes children have this way of trying to do things on their own. You will want to maybe brush the child's mouth. She will just be telling you that, just give me the brush, and she will just try to see what you are doing too. Go. So just, if that child is trying to be independent, hand it over to him or her and see what is going to happen. As they are trying on their own, you should also be directing them and coaching them how to do it. Before you know it, in no time, that child will be on his own. I have this friend whose child doesn't want to be bathed by the housemates. They will cry, they will fight with the child because he doesn't want to be bathed. He wants to take his bath by his own, but they will say he will not do it well. I said, still allow him to be doing it. Time will come when he will be doing it the perfect way. So they need that freedom, and they want that kind of autonomy to be on their own. So this is more or less like what she's talking about, this child-centered learning. We should make it sensory and make it independent learning environment. The children should be independent on their own. Are we getting it? That is it. Now let us go to the current developments. Current development. There is something called the critical pedagogy. Critical pedagogy. by this Brazilian philosopher, Paulo Freire. This Paulo Freire, in one of his books called Education for Critical Consciousness. Education for Critical Consciousness. Oh, no, not Education for Critical Consciousness. That was not the title of the book. The title of the book actually is Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Inside this Pedagogy of the Oppressed, Paulo Freire was discussing something very important, something very profound, called the banking concept of education. Banking concept of education. Banking in that, just from bank, that the system of education used to like, more or less like, we just dump ideas for the students and they bring it to us back. When you put money, we get money back. Oh, that is the banking system. It was more or less like saying that the students in this banking concept of education are more or less like just reservoirs. You just put in and you get exactly what you put in there. What is called garbage in, garbage out. Go. This garbage in, garbage out will give you, if you like, it's more or less like not allowing students to be critical, not allowing them to be independent. They simply try to cram what you give them and they bring it back to you. And in fact, if you want to know one of the reasons why I don't give notes, it's because of this. Because in most cases, if you give a student a note, you think that is just the end of it. If he crams that note and brings it back to you, he has passed your course. But that is not the case nowadays. We want you to go further, to go deeper. Take a deep dive when we give you something. That will help you to learn more, to be independent, than just to just spoon feed you. As soon as we spoon feed you, you just regurgitate it back when you come to the hall. And as soon as you leave the exam hall, you have forgotten what you have crammed. And nothing education has taken place there. It's simply some intellectual exercise that is lingering in what we call the short-term memory. Go. So you want kind of education for the long-term memory, so that you once you internalize it, you're not going to forget it. You don't need to even read if you like, because there is enough on the table for you. You just need to know what idea are they discussing, and you keep on flowing. That is why he said this banking concept of education is talking about how we should teach our students to be critical, to analyze the problems of the society, and also to see how they can be catalysts to the solutions to such problems of the society. Do you understand? And most especially what he was doing at this banking concept was he was kind of, let me say, teaching an adult population. He was trying to use the adult population for his own experiment, and that was what he did. A lot of people had different ways of looking at education after his method, and it really worked at that particular time. That is why we look at it from that perspective. We have what we call the feminist philosophy, what we call the postmodern and the post-structural thought. This postmodern era is actually people like Derrida, that is Jacques Derrida, and Foucault. Michel Foucault and Jacques Derrida. These two individuals are looking at something we call deconstructionism. They said that if you really want to get things right, you have to deconstruct what is available. You have to dismantle the existing ideas so that we can bring something better than what is there. We should disintegrate it, analyze it, and also come up with something that is going to be more beneficial to us. That is why they call them the constructionists. That is one of the major ideas at that time. So they were into critical discourse. And then speaking of feminist philosophy, here, we can think about this philosopher. This philosopher called Simone de Beauvoir. Simone de Beauvoir was a feminist. Simone de Beauvoir. She was an existential philosopher and a French philosopher. The feminist is that what we're talking about here, when we're talking about feminism, in this philosophy we look at, in most cases, the gender issues. And most especially looking at the female gender as the weaker sex. That was why this Simone de Beauvoir wrote a particular book titled The Second Sex. The second sex, saying that they are second to the men, and as such there are a lot of disadvantages that are accrued to women than men. So this philosophy was more or less like, it stirred a lot of, let me say, modern issues that have to do with education of the girl child. Most especially in those days, we all know that at a point in time, the girls were not allowed to learn. Well, they believed that they should just go to their marital homes and continue producing kids, assisting the first sex. That was what some people called it the second sex. Saying that majority of the time, the women are at a disadvantage here. So when we're doing what we call reverse discrimination, for instance, we always see them as one of the disadvantaged groups. So if they are disadvantaged, so when we're clamoring for issues of this equal educational opportunities, clamoring for education for all, clamoring for universal basic education, all these had in one way or another bearing towards saying that all children, be they adults or be they males or females, they have the same equal opportunity for education. And a lot of other organizations came in, and they are talking about how we should even, how they give more scholarship for female children to be sent to the school. A lot of incentives. However, I don't know what to say, but as far as I'm concerned nowadays, I said this in one of my classes, that at a point in time that the female children were the ones that are at disadvantage. But now the tables have turned. The male children are those that are now at disadvantage. You can simply take that census, if you like, look around in this classroom. We have more women than men in the classroom, or more boys than girls. And it's not only in this classroom that this is happening. Even if you go to other levels, it's the same thing. I don't know if you're getting my point. This is how I'm seeing it anyways. I don't know if maybe I'm the only one seeing it. Our boys are no longer coming to school. They're out there hustling. Some of them are busy snatching our phones. Go? Yes. We don't want to send them to school, so they will be a nuisance for us. That is for sure. If you don't give a child a job, the child will give himself. And if he gives himself, you are going to cry for that. Because the energy he is carrying, you can't handle that. So, I don't know what to say, but we have to have a rethink. We have to have a rethink for that. This is about issue of gender bias and promotion of female gender. That is feminist philosophy, what they call inclusivity or inclusive education. And then now, looking at the African philosophy. African philosophy is one of the new areas that we are reigniting. One of the emergent areas of discourse. One of the areas that philosophy is shifting its attention to is philosophy or is African philosophy. You can see this happening, most especially that recently, philosophers of education of Nigeria, which I'm one of them, just last year, published a book titled African Philosophy. They published a book titled African Philosophy, which I'm one of the authors. And in that, in those kind of writings, you find out that they have been talking about decoloniality, how we decolonize our own mental state, saying that majority of what is making us to be what we now call the deluded hybrids, our children not actually looking inwards whenever they want to progress. Because we have been kind of, let me say, brainwashed by this colonial mentality of doing white-collar jobs. And as such, our children are now being unemployed. Unemployment is at its own highest ebb. Isn't it? You see graduates in hundreds of thousands leaving school. After going to the so-called NYSC, they come back with all the alawi and everything. They come back and stay at home. The jobs are not there. And they are going out there and they can't do menial jobs because they are not graduates. Go? They feel that, as a graduate like me, how can I do this? How can I do this kind of job? How can I be sweeping the streets? Or maybe how can I be farming? How can I be just squatting and farming? As a graduate, me, that kind of mentality will make him to stay there for 20 years without job. Always looking at who is coming, who is riding the best car. Among my friends, and he's my classmate, and that guy is my classmate. He's there making life, and he's busy trying to see how he can just come close to him so that he can just give him some peanuts. Because he has that mentality that he's a graduate, so he can't do some kind of job. He can't even just ride bike and do a chapa. As a graduate like himself, how can he do that kind of job? That is degrading for him now. Cool? So what I'm trying to say nowadays is that if we really want to fix this, that African mentality of everyone having a trade from your home, no one staying at home. Yes, you can go to school, do whatever you want to do, but you must have a trade, you must have a craft that you can do with your hand. You must have a business, family business. everyone should be carried along, both boys and girls. That was the African way. Because during that time, African philosophy, in Africa, we didn't have something as unemployment. Everyone was working. One of the reasons why we even crave for more children was because the more children we have, the more workforce we have in the town. Cool? But now, even at the villages, they'll have the children, but they'll run to Lagos. They run to Lagos or to Abuja and do some menial jobs. They see them selling taganots or selling dead pounds. Maybe at most, if they are so rich, they'll be Messiah. Those are even the enterprising ones. Others, when they come to the town, they are not doing this phone snatching for you. They snatch your phone. They bring out weapon for you and just snatch whatever you have. Why? Because we don't want to go to the farm. We don't want to use what God has given us. African philosophy here, that is what they said, is now being more emphasized. You will imagine last 2 years, we had a book titled African Philosophy. As we speak now, even right now on my platform, another textbook has been brought up. And everyone was like, we just recently had a book on African philosophy, but people still want to go back there. Because they believe that this current trend is one of the best ways to fix our problems. Because the more we sing our songs, the more we begin to like what we are singing. And the more we want to put into practice what we are also singing. But if we continue to listen to the gendered music, we continue to be listening and building castles in there and never be employed. I don't know if I'm making some point here. So this is exactly what is happening as far as this African philosophy is concerned, because it emphasizes community, communal coexistence between us. This communal coexistence is simply talking about how we look out for each other. The issues of individualism are not there, because individualism is one of the roots of all inequalities. Cool? Because inequality brings unemployment. The more the inequality gap is widening, the more unemployed we have. But through communal living, they believe that if maybe in a family we have someone who is very rich, that wealth of that individual is not for him alone, it's for the whole family. So everyone is having a share. So as such, everyone must participate and grow up what that individual has. I don't know if I get in the point. But what individualism is telling us now, if you have your money, it's for you alone. So your relatives should not even come close to you. It is only you, your wife, and your kids. Even your parents sometimes don't even get to enjoy your wealth. And that is what is killing us and what is making us to be where we are today. Someone being stinking rich while his immediate brother is out there suffering, sleeping without something to eat. So that is individualism, and that is what we call Western ideologies. And ours is communal ideology, and this African philosophy is what it is telling us, that we should be our brother's keeper. Lastly, we have this digital epistemologies. Digital epistemologies. Whereby we talk about what we call the emergent trends. Emergent trends like the issue of the artificial intelligence. Philosophy has been reflecting on AI. I could recall last year, which this very year we're going to publish a journal talking about AI and the philosophy of education. One of the current trends as we speak now, very current, is that we are looking at the AI and we are making reflections about the AI. What is the AI? Artificial intelligence. What is this artificial intelligence? Most especially, it's not just artificial intelligence, it's normally called something, GPT. It's called GPT, that's generative pre-trained transformers. These generative pre-trained transformers have come to stay, yet with a lot of ethical questions. A lot of questions that are being raised by philosophers. Are we really safe? People are having mixed feelings about the AI. The AI has come and it's helping us to do a lot of things so easy. A lot of thinking. You can sit down, talk about your problem for like 5 pages. Tell the AI your problems. The AI will read those 5 pages in a couple of seconds and give you responses, analysis of what you put for that AI. It will analyze it for you. Give you solution to the problem that you put there. It will first of all analyze what you have said, first of all, tell you that it has really understood you. That okay, this is your situation, this and that. Okay, now here is my take for what you are talking about. It will give you a detailed explanation of your problem and how you should solve that problem. These problems are talking about even personal problems, not just educational problems. And if it is educational, AI will still do the same for you. But there are some things that we have come recently to learn deeper into AI itself. But AI has now confessed that it sometimes hallucinates. What it is hallucinating is that if it is hallucinating, maybe you asked something that it doesn't have, or maybe the data that it has is obsolete, meaning it is outdated. And as such, you want it to give you something deeper. As soon as you ask that kind of question, it will hallucinate. That hallucination means that it will just kind of guess something and just give you. Because it is trying not to allow you without a response. Are we getting it? That is why they said if you are conducting research, whatever the AI gives you, as far as education is concerned, you should go to verify. Yes, it has simplified the things for you, it has given you the response, but go and do independent research on Google to confirm what it has given you, else you may end up getting caught and being charged for plagiarism or charged for some other things again. Are we getting it? So don't always believe that what it gives you is the total thing. It gives you, but you have to fall back and go back and conduct your own research on your own. That is why it is very critical that when we are discussing issues about this AI, we should talk about these issues, these ethical issues. And now, lastly, with this I will close, and we are done with our philosophical issues as far as this topic is concerned. There's this thing talking about education for peace. Education in the conflict zones. Education in the conflict zones. In Nigeria, for instance, or maybe anywhere you can think about Ukraine now. Ukraine. There is war there. Think about Israel. Think about Gaza. Don't really think about the Middle East now. What is your take on education? Do you really think classes are holding normally? Are classes holding normally? However, the children need to go to school. So these are areas that philosophy is reflected. What kind of curriculum are we going to actually make for these kids? Someone just lost his father. Maybe lost the whole of his family. Only him existed. And you start to tell the child that start learning from the A, B, C, that you are dancing for the child. You need to that child will even listen to what you are saying. What do you have to do first? You have to fix the emotional stability of the child. And this is where one line of philosophy comes in, aesthetic education. Aesthetic education. Aesthetic in that you can use it to address the plight of these displaced persons. You can use it to address their emotional stability, most especially this issue called the post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder, that is PTSD. Because majority of such kids are suffering from PTSD. And if you want to solve that PTSD, it has to be what? It has to be through this emotional anger. You're not talking about intellectual ability of the child now. You're trying to stabilize the peace of the child first. Cool? So these are areas that we're now thinking in philosophy that is current and is happening. Think about Zamfara now, or Jibia in Katsina. The people from Jibia and so many axes within Katsina are now relocating, or migrating rather, not just relocating, they're migrating back to the city center there. So there's too much concentration of the population at the center now. So how are we really going to internalize these new students? Are we going to relocate our teachers from there and bring them here? Because they told themselves they cannot stay there. So there are a lot of thoughts going on, a lot of issues going on that philosophy of education is thinking on how we address these problems. These are current, these are rights at our doorsteps. And these are what we are actually reflecting on as philosophers of education. So with this, I will say we'll call it a day. If you have any question, you have 2 minutes before I close my class. Questions? Who is the captain in this class? I know these are different departments, not education only. Cool? So you are the captain for this 101. You have my number. You come and take my number and I will send the outline for you of my discussions here, so that you can share with them and they will read deeper too. Like I said, it's an outline, not a note. But to just explain to you what I've been talking about. Clear? So we will see in the exams, inshallah. Cool? And for education students, we'll meet at 105. Cool?